Soon, days went by, passing forward in almost hyperdrive until a couple of days before the wedding. Damien and I worked hard after our rest day to make everything perfect, and we were positive that nothing could go wrong. The boys picked him up, leaving me alone to get into my wedding dress and wait for my limo to drive me to the wedding hall. I was nervous that I needed to prep everything on my own without interruption. I got into my dress, finished getting ready, and wound up staring at myself in the mirror in awe. I was in my dream wedding gown, looking as I had always imagined I'd look like getting married. The one thing that made it special was that I was marrying... I stopped myself. Damien wasn't a demon. He was a human. Oh, I thought this was going somewhere really sweet. Like, what made it special is that I was marrying the love of my life, Damien. It's like, I'm marrying a succubus. Not this time. I'm marrying an incubus, and that's what's really special here. Angel, check your priorities, please.
Aren't you so proud of yourself?
Huh? Well, this is interesting. I looked around, suddenly hearing Diana's voice in the air. Just hearing her ask that one question filled the air with dark and menacing tension. However, it was impossible. How was she here? Diana? Where are you?
You didn't answer my question.
Why should I? Show yourself. Ah, it's Shadow Diana. As I looked at the mirror, I gasped. Instead of my reflection, I saw a dark shadow with gold eyes staring at me. I would know those cruel eyes anywhere. Diana.
How does it feel to be inches away from marrying the man of your dreams?
Why should I tell you anything? Why are you here?
A frisky bridezilla, aren't you?
Answer me!
Tell me first, how do you feel now that Damien's no longer who he was?
Who he... What?
Remember, he was born a demon, and you took that away from him. Well, I did anyway. At your request, of course.
He wanted to be human. This was insane. Why was I arguing with her when she was just a shadow in the mirror? Diana let out a dark laugh.
You don't even know who you're marrying, do you? Damien, the human who was a demon. What's next? Will he demand to be a woman instead? He could easily be one. Oh, wait. He can't because he no longer has the ability to do so himself.
Such a weird conversation to have right before getting married. Why do you care? He can do what he wants.
But do you even know what he wants? I want to go to the human world. I want to be human. Tell me, can you give him everything he wants? I want my mother back. I want to forget that I was ever a demon. I want to forget I was even born.
Stop it! I couldn't take it any longer. I grabbed the lamp on my nightstand and lifted it, ready to smash the mirror to pieces. However, as I looked back at the mirror, it only showed my reflection. Diana was gone.
I knew it! I knew it! That girl has demon magic.
Because we picked up a table to throw at the mirror? Or did Diana come from inside of us? What the...
Then quit talking and let's take her! The Demon Lord will be so pleased.
Who? Before I could turn to search for the voices, I felt hands grab hold of my feet, and I looked down and lifted my dress. Two pairs of evil-looking hands had taken hold of my ankles, reaching through a dark red and purple pentagram. I shrieked, trying to pull my legs away, but couldn't stop them as they swiftly pulled me into the ground. I was pulled deeper into the darkness. I was no longer in my room. I was being dragged through a dark void, one that I couldn't escape. I reached out and clawed at the dark, trying to find something to grab onto. I tried to pull my legs away from the hands that were holding them, but couldn't pull free. What was going on? Why was this happening? Someone help me! As if someone had heard my screams, I suddenly felt the hands let go and disappear, leaving me to float in the darkness they left me in. I shut my eyes. Please let this be a dream. Please let this be a dream. I finally felt a surface under my feet, and I collapsed onto it, my body curling in on itself from the experience I had. I didn't dare tear my eyes away from my lap, not ready to get up just yet. The voice I heard, however, made my heart stop for much more than usual.
You! What are you doing here?
Time to skip. And in this instance, I think it would be good to stay still out of shock. I could scream too, but either one of those would be valid reactions, I feel, at this point. Okay, so first time didn't work out so great. I'll just say okay. And, yeah, I'm good.
Good. A good rest is always important, especially to humans.
Okay, and this time I'm just gonna stay in the room. And we're gonna meet our trainer for this route. It was better to be safe than sorry. I fell back onto the bed and closed my eyes, contemplating taking a nap to make time go by faster. Staying in my room was the best option for me, both so that I wouldn't get lost and that I'd be okay in case the guards were on duty. I let out a small sigh before looking around the room. Was there anything I wanted to look at closer?
Excuse me.
Before I could find anything, I looked to the door towards the voice. Peeking in was the rabbit woman, cautiously remaining behind the door while looking at me.
Are you feeling okay?
Huh? Yeah, I am, thank you. Please, come in. I trusted this woman, despite barely knowing her. She assisted me in coming to this room, and she was one of Diana's comrades, so I felt that I could put my trust in her. The woman nodded before stepping into the room and closing the door behind her. She turned to me and stood by the door.
I'm assuming Diana told you about the situation.
Yeah, I'll be back home tonight. That's the hope, anyway.
Yes. We sent our agents as soon as we knew what we had to gather. We're positive they will turn up before nightfall, and we'll be able to cast a gateway spell.
I nodded and let out a small sigh. It would be a long wait, but it would be worth it if it worked. The woman, however, took a step forward.
May I ask you something?
I looked to the woman, slightly confused. Sure, go ahead. What is it?
Well,
I watched as the woman reached up and rubbed one of her ears, almost in nervousness. What was she nervous about? Finally, she spoke again, releasing her ear.
would you mind if I asked you about the human world?
The human world? Why would she be curious about the human world? She was a demon that looked like an anthropomorphic rabbit. The woman hugged her large staff against her body as she shrugged.
How are things like in the human world? Is there equality amongst your races? I've only heard stories, but since you're a human yourself, you would know.
My mind ran back to the social life of the human world. At least in America, we claim to be equal, but we had major prejudice amongst our races, whether we liked it or not. I found myself to be on neutral ground, not wishing to be extreme on either opinion, but knowing the difference between what was morally right and wrong. I looked at the woman and shook my head, making her eyes widen slightly. We're not exactly equal. I mean, we try, but we're pretty divided. However, it's only one of many problems we face. The woman nodded before walking over and sitting down on the bed beside me.
I see. Are there major wars fought because of it?
In a way, we have marches and movements, but we at least try not to escalate it to war where I live. It's better to resolve things without violence.
That's smart. I hope that equality can be found in your world.
What about here? The woman shook her head, her smile turning a bit grim. I could tell that things were rough here just from looking at her expression.
We have sort of a caste system here. What kind of demon you are determines what life you live. Demons of Lilith like Diana are usually royals and nobles, while animal demons like me are much, much lower in the ranks.
I could hear her anger and shame just from her voice alone. Were things really that bad here? That's horrible. I'm so sorry.
It's all right. That's why I joined the rebellion. We intend to make changes, make it better. I want to be part of that and help fix things.
There was a confidence in her words that didn't match the look in her eyes. She knew something was off in what she said, but she expressed it anyway as her reply to me. I didn't know whether or not to prod or keep silent. I wouldn't be here long, so I decided to keep my mouth shut until we could talk about it in detail later. The woman shook her head out as if she was scattering the thoughts from her mind and looked at me.
So, you are getting married. You must be excited to get back with your family and soon-to-be partner.
Huh? Oh, yeah, I'm excited to go back. For a brief moment, I had nearly forgotten that I was getting married. My mind began to wander to the one who was waiting for me, making my heart ache. As I looked down at my lap, the rabbit woman looked down as well.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you upset. But you will be home soon.
I nodded. I shouldn't have let it get me down, but I really did miss being in the human world. I think anyone in my situation would understand, especially since I was a bride. I looked at my hand, seeing my engagement ring and imagining the wedding ring that was made for me replacing it. Soon enough it would be on my finger, and I would be able to continue living my life as normal. Pulling myself out of my thoughts, I looked at the woman as she stood and bowed to me.
Well, I shall leave you be. I will bring food whenever it is ready, so that you don't starve.
Thank you. I appreciate it. With that, the woman left, leaving me alone in my room to wait. And then I got the imp soup, and I'm not gonna eat that. Never again. Never gonna try. Alright. Time to try this again. And then when the flash happens, we'll start up again. Alright.
Ready yourselves! It could be the Demon Lord!
The other demons in the room readied themselves and stared at the tear, either holding a weapon or preparing a spell. I felt the air change, becoming heavier as the tear began to grow. The energy around it began to pulsate, making everyone in the room that much more tense. I stared at the tear as well, frightened as to what was coming. Was it the Demon Lord? His minions? My mind began to cycle through fearful ideas of what was about to appear. It's so terrifying. My heart almost stopped. Fallen from the tear and landing on the table were the 5 Incubi brothers. They were piled on top of one another, having come through one at a time. However, as the last brother landed, the boys fell to one side, toppling off of the table and landing on the floor. The rebels around me stared at the fallen pile of Incubi, confused and surprised. As the tear in the air closed, the ogre man was the first to lower his sword.
What the hell?
Who are they?
Careful! They could be the Demon Lord's men!
No! The rebels looked to me as I stood up, Diana following and still protecting me, and I stared at the boys on the ground. They all looked dazed and a bit shell-shocked from having fallen twice in rapid succession. I almost couldn't believe it. There they were, right in front of me. My mind couldn't help but remember how I had first met them. They had all been on the floor of my mansion, unconscious and wounded. Now they were in front of me in the demon world. I know them. I stared at the one I was meant to marry, seeing him slowly shake his head and rise from the ground. They came to rescue me. He came to rescue me. My heart became overjoyed and full of warmth and happiness. I was going to go home. The question was, how? As the sight of the boys kept the demon's attention, a second tear opened above them, causing everyone to look up. 4 women dropped down from the tear and somehow managed to fall into the arms of the Incubi behind Damien.
Whoa!
I gotcha!
Ah, Norin's back. Yay!
I gotcha! It's okay!
Eric!
Love, I've got you!
James!
Whoa, are you all right?
I stared wide-eyed. Their wives came too? I watched as the boys and the girls finally planted themselves on the ground before looking around. Damien's eyes locked onto me and he hurried towards me. Damien! I swerved around Diana and rushed to Damien, meeting him halfway and wrapping my arms around him tightly.
I'm so glad you're safe.
I took in his scent, his warmth. He was here, in my arms, and I couldn't have asked for anything more. Damien seemed to feel the same as he wrapped his arms around my form and buried his face in my shoulder. Give him a squeeze. I tightened my hold on Damien, silently expressing my love and happiness at seeing and feeling him again. He squeezed back lovingly, peppering my neck with kisses. Oh, wow, so many people on screen. As Damien and I had our movement, his brother stepped up near us, almost in a protective circle. Sam, however, moved towards Diana, glaring hard, as he always does. This brings back memories of when they formed a circle around me when we first met Diana in our house.
You've got 10 seconds to explain why she's here, bitch.
I'm going to ignore that insult for the sake of the bride. However, I wasn't the one who brought her here.
You're such a terrible liar.
I turned to see Matthew and Sam standing in front of me, and Damien, ready to attack Diana. The succubus in question, however, seemed unfazed by their attempts at intimidation. Guys.
Did she bring you here?
What? Turning my head back to Damien, I saw a serious look in his eyes. I had only seen that look once before, when Diana had confronted me and showed me his past. I shook my head. No, she didn't bring me here. It was the Demon Lord.
I beg your pardon?
Pardon-moi?
Are you sure?
I stared at Damien, seeing something in his eyes ignite like an angry flame that was quickly growing. His hold on me tightened as he looked at Diana.
Why did he bring her here?
I looked over to Diana, knowing that she would explain, but I was surprised to see her flinch back at his expression. Was she scared? Shaking her head, Diana cleared her throat and looked back to Damien, settling back into her uncaring gaze.
He wanted to lure you all back, knowing that at least you, Damien, would chase after her, and the others would follow. Obviously, his plan worked.
This time it was the boys who flinched in surprise, feeling the weight of her words. However, Damien gathered himself and spoke up again.
Well, thank you for keeping her safe. We'll be...
She can't leave.
And why not?
She's been cursed by the Demon Lord. She can't leave unless she dies or until we kill him.
You plan to kill him?
We're obviously not going to choose the former. We've been fighting the Demon Lord for 10 years now. Might as well have another reason to kill him.
My eyes looked to Damien, wondering what he was thinking. Diana then shrugged.
However, it will take some time to plan out our attack. We can't just walk into his castle and slit his throat.
Damien finally looked back to me, staring into my eyes as if he was trying to find some sort of response. I stared back, trying to find some hint as to what he was thinking about in his eyes. He slowly leaned forward and kissed my forehead before turning his head back to Diana.
How much time do you need?
1 week.
I shot my head towards Diana in surprise, as did the rest of the occupants in the room. Seriously? 1 week?
Where is this number coming from, Succubus?
Time to skip a little bit. Okay, nothing's stuck yet. And of course we say the trap. That's the better option. The nicer option.
Actually, I do. You all don't belong on the battlefield.
Excuse me? Just hold on a...
I will not take untrained and unarmed beings into a war zone.
But we can fight too.
We understand completely.
We know what the risks are.
Alright. I now change my outfit.
Hey, you look really nice. Good choice.
I don't think I had anything to do with that, but I'll give kudos to Diana. I blushed, getting used to the feel of the outfit. The corset wasn't tight, but it was still something new along with the rest of the garb. Damien smiled and wrapped an arm around my shoulder, hugging me to him.
You look really nice.
Aww. Thank you.
Faye, Rabbit, you both should finish your preparations and head over to the Demon Lord's castle for the spell.
Righto. And now we're back to where we should be. The walk to the room was filled with awkward silence. What were we supposed to do here? Damien and I were both human, and while yes, we both knew he'd have to help in the war, he wasn't a demon anymore. I grimaced, feeling the nervousness of the situation take hold of me. This was going to be a rocky adventure. Who knew what would happen? What to expect? I could only guess time would tell. We'll just have to get through this route somehow. I gripped Damien's hand harder, letting my nerves sink in. Naturally, Damien smiled and kissed my forehead.
It's okay. Everything will be alright, I promise.
I nodded, but some part of me was still fearful despite his reassurance. We were in the demon world. Humans in the demon world. I was worried what would become of Damien now that he was in his home plane as something he wasn't born as. I looked up at Damien, seeing him focused on following our guide to get us to our room. I was curious. What was going through his mind? I was sure he was worried when I was taken, but now that he had me back, what was he thinking of now? For a moment, I briefly wished I had his mind-reading ability. I wanted to know what went through Damien's mind at everything we did, at every step we made, at every event that came along the road. Feeling my stare, Damien turned his head and looked down at me, furrowing his eyebrows in confusion.
What is it?
I lightly bit my lip. Did I want to tell him what was on my mind? I mean, the best way to read someone's mind is just ask them a question. What do you think about this whole thing? I had to verbalize my curiosity. Damien took in the question before turning to the hall once again, frowning a bit.
I think it's a really bad situation. You're trapped here, and I'm human, so I can't do much to help in the war.
As Damien squeezed my hand, however, I felt my heart flutter a bit.
Still, I want to help and bring you back. I'll do everything I can to send us back home.
Damien. I naturally hugged his arm to me, causing him to gasp a bit and look over, a faint blush running across his cheeks. He was so adorable, and I absolutely loved him. Whatever drew him to me made my heart feel absolutely lucky to have him. As we reached our room, I took it in that the ambassador room I had claimed the night before was officially sanctioned for me and Damien. The others were given rooms in another part of the castle, so we had some space to ourselves. Stepping in, I took a seat on the bed, feeling mild exhaustion sweep over me. However, Damien looked around the room in slight awe. I tilted my head, wondering why. Damien stepped around the room, looking around and observing every piece of decor. As he got to the mantel, he looked almost stunned to see the design and architecture of it. It was almost like watching a little kid walk into a museum. Damien? My voice caught his attention, causing Damien to jump up and look at me in surprise. As he calmed down, he rubbed the back of his neck in nervousness.
Sorry, I've never really been in a room like this before, so this is a bit of a surprise to me.
I was wondering if he's like, wow, I had no idea rooms this nice existed. Really? What kind of room did you have? I stared at Damien in shock. He really never saw a room like this? We were in the demon world, though. How could have this been not familiar to him? I was positive that he would have at least seen a room like this in his time here. Damien shook his head in reply.
I never had a room growing up.
Aww. And my heart suddenly crumbled in my chest. I knew that Damien was the mistreated bastard son of the demon lord, but to not have a room? That was almost cruel. Out of all the things. So cruel. I couldn't help imagining Damien sleeping on the cold marble floor of the grand hall or even in a cell. My soul began to weep for him, but I knew that it was just better to ask him about his experiences than assume the absolute worst cases. How did you sleep then?
Well, demons don't sleep at all, actually.
That made absolutely no sense. Wait, what? They don't? Why do they have beds and stuff then? Damien blushed a bit with a grimace across his lips.
Well, other than having, sex. Demons rest. Like lying down and reading or something like that, but demons never close their eyes for long. It opens them up to being taken advantage of.
Then how the heck do demons function?
With energy and food. As long as a demon has both, or at least one or the other, they can keep functioning without needing to sleep. Lying down simply lets them stop using their energy.
Then what about in the human world? Were you and the others pretending to sleep? Damien shook his head, driving another confused wedge into my brain. What? Demons could sleep then, but only if they wanted to? But they absolutely didn't need to, so they didn't have to? Damien laughed a bit at my confusion.
When we went to the human world, we got to experience sleep for the first time. It was so good for us, and we felt relaxed, so we kept at it, like regular humans. Besides, the risks we had here are not the same as the risks in the human world.
There was still a lot I had to learn about demons, apparently. Not that I needed to know, but my curiosity about them grew the more I learned about them. Damien smiled and walked over to sit beside me and kissed my cheek.
I think we'll be safe to sleep, though. This is Lilith Castle, after all.
Lilith Castle? This place has a name? With a nod, Damien pointed over at the mantle, tracing through the air at the markings in the stonework.
If I remember right, James told me about the first succubus, Lilith, and how she gave birth to incubi and succubi from this very castle. Diana is her descendant, so she now owns this place.
Wow. So Diana really was a princess. I was a bit surprised to confirm that fact, but in the end it made sense. She had the attitude of one, that was for sure. Damien wrapped an arm around my shoulders and smiled.
At least we'll get some good sleep tonight.
Yeah. I could feel that we would be okay in our room. The castle was well fortified from what I knew, and Diana seemed to be on top of making sure everything ran smoothly, as did the other rebel leaders. Everything was like a well-oiled machine. I leaned my head on Damien's shoulder, letting out a small sigh. I'm sorry.
Huh? For what?
I looked up at Damien, remembering that I had been gone an entire day. I must have worried him sick and made everyone else go crazy at my absence, not only from the wedding, but from the entire human world. For going missing. I was gone for a whole day. Damien stared at me for a moment before smiling and kissing my forehead.
Were you really here a whole day?
I furrowed my eyebrows, staring at him and trying to figure out if he was joking or being serious. Seeing my expression, Damien let out a small laugh and hugged me to his side.
To me, you were only gone for about 4 or 5 hours.
Wait, what? That could not be. There was no way that I was gone for that short period of time. I remembered sleeping in this room, going through an entire day of being in this world and trying to get home to him twice. That definitely did not add up. With a small smirk, Damien released me and placed his hand on my head.
Time runs differently between the human and demon world. A whole day here is about 5 hours in the human world. You weren't gone very long.
My jaw dropped. Even time was different here. This world was full of surprises. I felt myself hold my cheeks and try to take it in. How did everyone react? Damien frowned a bit and gently wrapped his arms around me, hugging me fully to him and resting his head on mine.
We were all worried sick about you.
Damien. I could only imagine what Damien went through in those 5 hours. When I didn't arrive, what was the first thing he did? What was the first thing anyone did? I felt guilty, but I also knew that what had happened was out of my hands. Damien let out a small sigh and kissed my head.
When you didn't show up, we sent the girls to find you while my brothers managed to wipe everyone's memories and delay the wedding for a couple of days. We didn't know how fast it would take us to find you.
Damien's grip tightened around me as he pulled me even closer to him.
I had to rely on my brothers to find you. There was no clue to where you were taken, so I had to sit and wait until they managed to locate you, here. Then we came.
Aw, Damien. Then you came. Embrace him. I was stunned by the love I was given by Damien. Despite being human, he traveled through the gates of worlds to try and find me. I was lucky to have a loving man like him. My only regret was being in this world instead of at the altar with him. I wrapped my arms around Damien and pressed my forehead to his shoulder, closing my eyes and taking in his scent and love. Eventually, Damien pulled away and stared down at me with a tired smile.
We should get some rest. There's a long week ahead of us.
This is very true. I nodded in agreement, knowing exactly what he meant. We slowly crawled into bed and snuggled into each other's arms, embracing the darkness of slumber once more. As sleep welcomed me, a thought ran through my mind. What would happen? Obviously, the boys would help fight in the war, but what about Damien? He was indeed human and had no abilities to use as such. Then again, maybe he could still use magic as a human. Carrie was able to do so, and she was human, but she was a witch trained in magic. Damien's abilities came with his demon side, which he no longer had. How would he fight then? The question floated around in my mind and my dream as I drifted to a calm and peaceful sleep.